Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown. I'm here with my normal co-host, Dr. Andrew Vallo. Today we're talking with a doc me and Andrew both have a lot of experience with. His name is Fran Dolan. Fran, I've been kind of front row for his dental practice ownership journey from before construction of his startup all the way to today. And it's been such an awesome thing to watch. You know, docs always have these great ideas about what they want their practice to be, what their vision to be. And in their mind's eye, they have this fantasy of what would make them fulfilled as a practice owner. And I think it's kind of a sad thing. I think a small percentage of docs actually realize the realization of that and to experience it. And I think I've seen very few docs do it as directly and kind of really honestly kind of make it happen the way Fran has. And really interesting story. Fran and me in the first 6 months of our relationship, Fran hated me. Fran, actually, my team came to me and said, "Hey, just so you know, so actually what happened was, real quick story. I was in Philadelphia and I was going to stop by and say hi to Fran. And I mentioned it to Jacob, our account manager, and he said, how about you don't do that?" And I was like, don't do what? He's like, I know you're in Philly visiting family and you're up there. Why don't you just hang out with your family? And I was like, really? He's like, Fran doesn't actually like you. And I was like, what? And then the team was like, actually, we mean to talk to you about this. This is Christmas. It's Christmas break. He said, we're actually not allowing you to go on Fran calls anymore. And I was like, what? So me and Fran didn't talk for like a year while he was using us, right? We didn't. And then it was just this last like year or so we reconnected. And I had this like internal mind thing of like, Fran Dolan hates me. Which is true. Our personalities didn't click in the beginning. It just, we're very different. I'm very direct. And I think we're a little different, but watching you grow the practice for where it is and give some context to the audience. Fran did a startup, no patience, in a very competitive market outside Philadelphia, very hard market. And he's doing about 460,000 a month now, just about 3 years later.
Wow.
And I mean, like he took one startup and turned it into multiple mature practices worth of production. So not just the money part of it, he's helped tons of people in his community. And he's not just doing crazy artwork either. It's a giant practice that has a very wide modality of treatment. And Fran did something that like some docs seek their whole career to build a super practice. And I think whenever you break that like $200,000 plus mark, you're making it into the super practice level. I know now we're expanding to a second part of the facility. And we're going to like
Correct.
18 ops, I think, right?
Correct.
So,
yep.
You know, we've wanted to have Fran on the show for a while because I think that docs get in a mode real quick of like, that would be nice. That could be awesome. They don't actually say, I can do that and then go for it. I think you put your head down and said, I'm not looking at the competition. I'm looking at anything else. I'm doing me and I'm making it happen, which is really what Dr. Vallo did too, right?
Right,
So, you know,
right.
just tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, and we'll kind of go from there. But it's been being front row for it, even when you didn't want to communicate with me, being front row and watching it has been remarkable.
Yeah. Just to touch on that. So, you know, my personality, I'm very impatient. You know, I want things right away.
Sure.
I want to
You and
pedal to the
both.
metal. You know, I want it. And, you know, it took me a little bit to realize marketing, you can't do that. You know, it takes some time to build up and everything.
You accused me in the beginning of making up all the patients. So you came to me and you said, Matt, I think these 400 patients a month, you're making all these names up. And I was like, Fran, do you think I'm sitting down and making names up with phone numbers and putting them in the system? And you were like, definitely. So you were impatient and you were skeptical.
Yes, I am. I'm a very impatient person. And for some reason, I just thought, you know, you pay and they just start coming right away. You know, with a startup starting with no patients, you're kind of sitting around like twiddling your thumbs like, all right, you know, when's the next one going to come? But obviously it turned out great since, you know, 3 years later, we're doing what we're doing. And, you know, obviously we're still with you. So anybody out there that is, you know, struggling the first couple of months of marketing, ride it out, trust the process. Trust me, I've been there. I know the angst, but just ride it out. It's definitely a process.
That's funny, Fran. I mean, I think Matt and I talked on an episode earlier about, because I'm also a very impatient person, and I think my impatience has somewhat led to my success because it's like I can't, when I got in my mind, I got to open another practice. I'm going to do it. Like, I can't wait. I'm not going to research and, spend years thinking about it. Like, I'm going to do it. But we did talk about the same thing with marketing and how, great marketing does take time. And like, it is important that you're keeping a finger on the pulse, but at the same time, you can't just turn something on and expect that week, all of a sudden you're going to have 100 new patients in the door. So it does take some time to get going. But
right.
What's your practice? So you're expanding right
funny.
now. When you built your startup, how many ops was it? What are you at now? What are you expanding to?
Yep. So when we built 8 ops. We plumbed 3 right away. Okay. And this was right after COVID. It was like a 4-month delay on getting the chairs.
Yep. I did the same time as you, man. I remember all that. Yeah.
Yep. It was brutal. So we finally get going. 4 months in, Matt finally started sending me some patients here, right? I started to trust them, and we're getting really busy. 4 months in, I'm like, wow, we need some more chairs. We ordered 2 more chairs, said, all right, they'll be here in 4 months. Said, I can't wait 4 months. We ordered all the chairs. I just said, if it's going to take 4 months, give me all 8.
Yeah.
So then we filled the whole place.
Most docs would not have the bravery and courage to do that.
Yeah. Like I talked about being impatient. There's one great example. But yeah, about 4 months in is when we started to feel like comfortable. We're like, all right, we got something here. Every week we'd just be getting more and more patients. Lines up a lot with when the marketing, started to hit. Our view of the practice was to create a culture just right from the get-go. Starting with the team. I always say that I think I have the best team in dentistry. It was me and my assistant at the time and, front desk. There was 3 people when we started. We created this culture that when somebody came in, it just, the vibe, grew, and they knew that, we're not messing around. We're treating every patient with an experience and delivering that. And I really think that positivity and energy rubs off on the patients. We get word of mouth referrals and, that they feel comfortable moving forward with their treatment. So I think that was the most important thing, like, setting the groundwork, creating that culture. We have a new office, so we, all modern stuff. I would say it's a pretty nice office, all, modern equipment and all. And then from there, we kind of just kept growing, kept going at it.
Do you remember what your first year numbers look like?
Matt would probably be better at telling me that. I would guess like right around $1 million would be my
that's a great first year for a startup, but obviously you've grown significantly since then. So do you still only have 8 operatories that you're doing 460,000 out of?
Yeah. So right now we have 8 operatories. We're busting at the seams. We are hoping to have the next kind of set open from the expansion at the end of December. So we're about 6 weeks away. And it's just going to provide us some overflow chairs at the beginning, but then obviously we need some more docs and all.
How many hygienists, how many doctors do you have right now?
Right now, so we did have 4. The last month we had one of our docs left. He actually lived in Maryland, so we moved back to Maryland. So we're down to 3 docs right now, and then we have 7 hygienists right now.
How are you running 7 hygienists and at recently 4 docs out of 8 operatories? Do you have like a split schedule?
Yeah, so split schedule. Yeah, so right off the bat, we started the split schedule. So for instance, my hours are 1 to 8, Monday and Tuesday. We flip-flop Wednesday and Thursday. I'm 7 to 1. Okay. And then the next team comes in right after we're done at 1. So we're open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., fully stocked. Fridays and Saturdays are 7 to 2.
It's incredible, man.
We're jamming it in.
I know other docs that are doing those kind of numbers out of a single office. We're right around 300K out of 7 ops at my flagship, which, we still have a little bit of room for growth there.
That's
but,
great.
We're definitely getting towards that plateau. We're 4 days a week, just kind of the regular shift. But I don't really think I know many, if any, other docs doing those kind of numbers out of 8 operatories. Typically, they've got 12, 15, 20, whatever it is. So if you're able to do that out of 8, I just think it goes to show our listeners, like what's possible? Because I think so many dentists, so many people, we put limits on ourselves. We think that, I mean, again, going back to it, hey, $1 million back when you first started your practice, you're thinking, hey, if I could do $1 million a year, that would be amazing. Not realizing that you could do 5 million out of that practice, or 6 million, or 8 million, or whatever it is. And I think it goes back to the same thing with the ops. People think, oh, I built my office too small. I only have 7 ops or 8 ops, not realizing that there's other alternatives. You could add something like a split shift. You could add more days. Whatever it is. So there's always a solution, I guess, is what I'm getting at. And you found a great solution to really, I mean, squeeze every last ounce of juice out of that practice. And now that you've done that, now you're expanding to take things to the next level, which is, I can only imagine what you said you're going to what, 16, 18 ops?
We're going to 18 ops.
Ooh, yeah.
Multiple.
It's gonna be fun to watch.
Four regular practices in one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So earlier, you guys asked the question about numbers. I pulled up Fran's numbers in dental intelligence. 2022, you opened. Month 1, you did 41,000. Month 2, you did 40. Month 3, you broke 101,000. Now, if we take March 2022 compared to March of 2023, March of 2022, you did a 101. March 23, you did 246. March 24, you did 347. But since March, last month, you did 462. So October of 22, you did 94,000. 23, you did 238. And then 24 in October, you did 462. So that's like, so one thing I wonder, Fran, sometimes docs, they have a propensity or a resistance to wanting to not change, or just any resistance to change. Just for the listeners and stuff, like, you're changing every month what you're doing. Like, literally next month, the way you did this month is going to change, right? Like would you agree that, like, from Jan of 22 when you opened to today, every single month, things were never, there's no set in stone. There's no, this is done. There's no, that project's done. Everything's evolving, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always changing. Luckily I kind of had the vision and the mindset that I kind of knew I wanted to be, at this level from the beginning. So a lot of the planning was to get to this level. So for instance, when we started, even though we had all the opportunities to ourselves and I could work any hours I wanted, I started at the 1 to 8, on Monday and Tuesday, to kind of just set the stone that, this is how we're going to do things. We're going to get ready so that when another doctor comes in, nothing's going to change. When we add team members, we do it a little bit differently. So my team is the same every week. So I have 2 of the same hygienists, 3 of the same assistants, 2 of the same front desks. So it's almost a couple mini practices in one big practice, to try to keep the change at a minimum. But we're, growing, and it's inevitable that, we're gonna change, and we're always working on our systems. You think you get something down, and then you realize you're like, oh, well, that's not going to work anymore. We're gonna change this. Luckily, my team is awesome, and I kind of explain that to them, like, hey, things are going to change, but the most important part is we keep our culture. We keep our culture, then it's all going to work out. There's going to be changes in the schedule. There's going to be changes in other things, but if we keep that culture, that's the most important part. We don't want that to change, and luckily, we've managed to do that for the first 3 years.
How do you maintain culture with the split shifts? I mean, as you mentioned, you almost have 2 separate practices within the same practice. So how do you maintain the consistencies between the different teams and the culture and everything?
Yeah, so that is a challenge. But we do a lot of meetings. So every day we do a morning huddle. Every week, the teams kind of meet at the end of the week, and we go over, lab cases, make sure the prior week everything was sent out and on check, and then we kind of look over next week, make sure everything's going well. We have a meeting every month where we shut down the office. The hygienists have a meeting with their group, EFTAs, front desk, doctors. We all separate, and then we come together as one big crew. Which is nice. So that keeps the communication ongoing. It is definitely a challenge, especially with, a bunch of people coming in and leaving all at once. It obviously gets busy and the turnover gets tough, but we manage it. Like my team, I can't say it enough, is awesome, and that's how we've gotten by.
And you're still clinical 4 days a week, is that correct?
So I was, and then we lost a doctor. So now I'm 5 days, which has been tough. I got a stack of papers on my desk here for stuff I got to get done. But it's hard for me because, you spend so much time and energy into building this. And I really do love dentistry. I love the way we do dentistry. It's hard to like step back from some of these patients and do the admin stuff. Like I know I have to. It's something that I'm kind of struggling with right now. If there was 48 hours in a day, I would do both, stay clinical and admin stuff. So we're hoping to find another full-time associate soon so that I can kind of cut back a little bit, just to make sure that we keep this thing rolling,
I don't think you necessarily have to step back. If you really enjoy the dentistry, you just have to have somebody else that's going to do it. So for me, I did enjoy the dentistry, but at the same time, I felt like my true calling was being, like CEO for our group and the admin stuff and the marketing and whatnot. I also had been dealing with some back and neck issues. So it just made sense. I gradually kind of cut down my days. And then eventually, more recently, I've essentially stepped out of the chair altogether. Awesome. But at the same time, man, if you love what you're doing in there, I think you could find a, CEO type of person to come in and do a lot of that. So that way you can still focus on the dentistry, still be the business owner. But I don't think that there's a one size fits all when it comes to that. What does your leadership team look like right now?
Yeah. So we have, we have an office manager who is, looking to go part-time. And then we had another office manager, if you will. She's great. It ended up being the associate who left fiance.
Oh.
So her hours are drastically cut.
Okay.
So that's kind of, really we lost two big parts in that. And, we knew it was happening. Like 2 years ago, they pretty much said like, hey, when his non-compete's up, he's, we're going to move back and open up an office. I don't think I was really prepared for it this soon. So it's something that we definitely have to, evolve and get a little bit better at that.
So you're clinical 5 days a week. You basically just lost one of your office managers. You've got another office manager that wants to go part-time. Do you sleep?
Well, not much, but that's because I have two little kids.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I've got one.
You had two children in the last 3 years too, right?
Yeah. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old.
Well, that makes you making time for this podcast even that much more, meaningful, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. Of course.
I mean, honestly, like super, super impressive what you're doing right now. I think, obviously the sky's the limit with this expansion here. I do think that's your next step is you need to bulk up your leadership team, especially if you do want to stay clinical 4 or 5 days a week. You've got to get, probably at least one more full-time office manager, and then maybe even like an operations officer. So, we've got one of those for my organization now. We added him earlier this year. And he is like my right-hand man. He does literally everything that needs to be done on a day-to-day basis for us. And so that's my point is like, yes, you've got this huge office, but being in one location, you probably could stay full-time clinical or mostly full-time, have, maybe 2 great office managers to do each shift and then have an operations manager as well and just keep things running smoothly and probably take a lot off your plate. Give yourself some more time with the family and everything. So
yeah, that's definitely something that I've been thinking of and that I need for sure.
So when does the expansion to the 18 ops? When does it open?
So it's going to open hopefully by the end of the year, probably sometime late December, early January. So we're going to open up 6 of the 11 ops that will be built. So we'll have, I guess, 6, 7, 13 ops because we are losing 1 op in here. So we'll have 13 ops at that time.
And you're not like trying to go to 18 ops or 13 ops and do 460. You're trying to go 13 ops and do a different number. What is that number?
It's a good question. So I guess, steady fives for the next year would be, the goal. Maybe 6 million for the goal of 25. Kind of just make sure we're growing. I don't really want to plateau, and I feel like we've done a good job of continual growth.
You haven't plateaued. There's been no plateau. If you look at your chart in Dental Intel, it's just a skyrocket.
2.5 years, you 10x'd your monthly collections. That's insane. I mean, 2.5 years to 10x it. So I mean, you're just on this exponential growth track right now. So in preparation for this opening, I mean, are you already interviewing more associate docs, assistants, hygienists? Like, are you guys working on a bunch of hiring right now?
Yeah, so we've been trying to hire for about 2 months a doc. The one thing I'm spoiled with, the 2 associates we have here are awesome.
Yeah.
And they really just set the standard so high. Like, when I leave, I don't really feel anxiety about oh no, I have to be there. I trust them. So I'm really just looking for that perfect fit, personality, the fit in the culture. So I'm being a little bit picky for sure. I actually did just put an ad in the Nachos Job Connect. So I did that this week. So I'm hoping that kind of ramps things up, and we have an associate for when we open up the expansion.
Make sure to do a post in Nachos about it too. So Paul will let you do that. Just try to get on one of the busy times, Saturday morning, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And make a post about your office and the job opening and all that stuff. And let some of us know. We'll go on and like it and comment to try to get some more traction and get some bigger audience there for you.
And this is airing in December. So if you haven't found anyone,
that's true. Yeah. I mean,
So hey Doc, if you're listening and you want to live in the Philadelphia area, and you want to work for, honestly, I believe if Andrew Vallo only wanted one location, he would be Fran Dolan. If Fran Dolan wanted 8 locations, he'd be Andrew Vallo. If you want to work in a super practice with a super doc and you're listening, contact Fran Dolan.
That's a lot to live up to being compared to Andrew, but
and how should someone contact? Let's say honestly, all joking aside, I have had docs that have reached out to me because of the podcast as we've been expanding, especially the implant offices, and we've had a couple implant docs reach out. But if someone's listening and they live in the Philly area and they'd love to come work at a great office, how should they contact you?
Yeah, I guess through Instagram would probably be the easiest way. You can kind of follow the office and you'll be able to see kind of the vibe that we have here. But Dolan_dental. Or the email is info@dolandental.net.
Awesome.
So you're expanding over to the other side. Now, for the docs listening, when you first started with us, you were doing bread and butter dentistry and I think some implants.
Pretty much bread and butter so we ordered a CBCT and it took, I think it was 5 months until we got it. So I really wasn't placing many just because I really needed that. So the first 5 months, not, just bread and butter.
So that ramp up, so we'll be clear about that. So that ramp up from $0 to $100,000 a month in collections, those first 6 months, all that growth didn't involve super high dollar value dentistry, right?
Right.
It just didn't. And then you started to expand into other modalities of treatment and getting more implant centric.
Right. Yep.
As you've grown that, right? So because you're growing the clinical side, plus you're growing the admin side, the business side, growing the clinical side. Sometimes that can be very daunting for a doc too. A doc just bought a new practice, just did a startup. You know what I mean? He's not doing these kinds of things. There's 2 levels of bravery here. There's the business bravery and there's a clinical bravery in the operatory. And you just were a pioneer and you just ran after both like a warrior. What was the clinical ramp up like that for you?
It was tough. I mean, obviously just taking a bunch of courses. I tried to take as many courses as possible before my son was born. And then my wife always says I'm just a very confident person. I see somebody do something and I'm like, wow, I want to do that. I can do that. And, take a course and, I just go in. The first couple of times you do anything, obviously, you're a little bit nervous and, it's not the greatest thing that you do, kind of tell the patient we're just started doing this, it might take a little bit longer or whatnot. We haven't had any, crazy bad, experiences. But now some of the stuff, for instance, like full arch, we're doing that a couple times a month. And honestly, it's one of the easier things I'm doing now because we've gotten it down, to pat, which is pretty cool. Also, like, when you own a business and you have to pay people, doing bigger procedures makes it a lot easier. So one fire kind of led to the other, you know what I mean? I think it was a perfect marriage there.
I think, you brought up a good point there in that a lot of docs have an issue with going to take CE and then they don't have that confidence to just kind of dive right in and figure it out. So I think that holds a lot of dentists back is that fear or feeling like they have to be 100% perfect before they, start doing this procedure. And I think it's important that sometimes we stretch our comfort zone. And I think that's true both from a business standpoint and from a clinical standpoint. It's pointless to spend thousands or tens of thousands of dollars and countless hours on CE if you're not going to come back to your practice and actually do that procedure. And so part of it's the confidence aspect. Part of it is you need to actually have that procedure coming in the door. So, whether it's marketing, talking to patients about it, letting patients know that, you offer this service. I think that's huge too. And I think that's probably a low hanging fruit in a lot of practices is there's probably most of our listeners, they probably have taken some CE that they haven't really fully, taken advantage of. And so whether that's Invisalign, hey, you took Galler's course, but you're back there and you're not, you got an iTero, but you don't really scan many patients. You're not doing any marketing for it. You're not doing Invisalign parties. Maybe you're doing a handful of cases a year, but you could be doing 10 cases a month. I mean, that's a huge practice booster right there. So
absolutely. I totally agree.
With the growth and everything else and growing into both, you grew both the business and the modalities of treatment on the other side. A lot of times when docs start to go down this road, there's a level of intimidation at opening your own practice. And I know we've talked a lot, and I know in the beginning you worked as an associate here and there a couple places while you were first opening. I know you obviously worked as an associate before that. Were you just confident and knew from the beginning, kind of like you said, like, I know I can do this? And then when you were working as an associate places, just as a mindset, did you more look for like, this is how I want to do things? Or did you notice how you didn't want to do things? And then you had your Fran Dolan way, you decided to do it on your own. Because some people look at it and try to replicate other people's stuff. Some people see where they're failing at something and say, I would have approached it better.
So kind of both. The place that I used to work at, I really enjoyed the first year I was there. Just doing bread and butter dentistry. It was kind of like a family atmosphere. Everyone, enjoyed each other. And we were a smaller off. I was the first associate. And then we grew. Once I came aboard, I'm not saying it was because of me, but we started growing really quickly. So at that point, I took a lot of the stuff that I liked about the first year and brought it here. But I also took some of the stuff I didn't like. I don't want to trash anything at all, but it definitely was a combination. And I knew from the start, especially one of the first people that came with me, worked with me at the other practice. And we pretty much said, this is what we like, this is what we don't like, and we're going to learn from it. But we examined pretty much everything about the old practice, whether, plus or minus, and we learned from it for sure. The one thing that I did take is the schedule. I'd never heard of a dentist like kind of staying open until 8 and, starting at 7 a.m. And I just saw the vision, the possibility of, what we can do with those hours. Patients love it. Our busiest times are 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., 7 p.m.
Yep.
Nobody has to take off of work. We're open on Saturdays. So that was one thing I definitely took from the other office. But, like most things, you learn from the good and the bad,
Do you feel like the extended hours make any challenge for trying to hire?
It does. Because you can't really give in to one person, then it kind of messes up the whole thing. We've had a couple docs that are like, I can't do weekends or I can't do a night or, morning. And, if it was like one day here or there, we can negotiate there and try to figure it out. But it is something that does cause a challenge for us. I personally love it. I call it like half day. I got a whole morning to myself. I do office work, and then the earlier days I'm done at 1 o'clock and have kind of the whole day. Some people, don't really love it. So it has been a little bit of a hurdle.
So when you do you find that like when you come in to do admin and you're in the practice and they come to you as you clinical stuff, do you have the ability to say now isn't the time and you have all your brain on the admin stuff? Like you're able to say like, hey, not now, and then able to focus on the admin stuff to really manage your time properly?
I wish. I try to get in here a couple days, like 6:30 or 6 before everyone gets here. And if my door's shut, they usually won't bother me until something's really necessary. Throughout the day, it's tough, and I'm somebody I've open door policy, whatever you need, come in, chat. So it does get tough. But I kind of love that aspect of it. I love communicating with my team, love checking in on people, and if they have problems or issues, coming to see me. I think that is the issue that I'm having now, that I have to figure out a way to balance both. I guess good issue, but definitely something that I have to work on, and with the expansion in the new year for sure.
Yeah, I think over the years I've gotten better at saying no. I think early on when you're doing a startup, you really do. You want to be available at all times for your team and your patients. And, as the practice grows, as you have a family, I've got a son now too. It's just like you eventually realize you can't say yes to everybody all the time. So I think sometimes you have to put those barriers up, get a little bit better at saying no, and protect yourself and protect your time, because otherwise you're never going to get anything done.
It's true. Absolutely true.
We need to wrap this up. So Fran, you've gone from startup, no patients 3 years ago to 460 last month, like 2.5, 3 years roughly. Your average patient value is right around $1,200, which is double the national average on DI, which is $660. And you've gone from, X amount of ops to you're going to 18 ops now, and you've done it all very confidently. And honestly, I can say this, I see all the data. You're in the top 1% of dentists in the country without a doubt. For a single location, you're there. What would you tell a dentist who has the dream you have? Like, if you could tell them 3 things of like, this is how you do what I did, what would be the 3 things you would tell them?
Great question. The first, so it all started in dental school. We had somebody come in, actually from Ideal Practice. Steven Strutter came in, and he talked about, doing a startup. And I was like, wow, I love this idea. It's awesome. And he's like, I challenge you to write down your goals for the next year, the next 5 years, and next 10 years. And that day I wrote down my goals. And I really think that changed the way I thought. I wrote something down on paper. I'm somebody that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, So I kind of held myself accountable. So owning a practice is always, one of the things. It was in my 5-year plan, which, it ended up achieving, thankfully. So I guess that would be one, have a vision, write it down. 2, you have to be confident. You have to be confident. You have to trust yourself. If I could do it again, I would almost be even more confident and, invest earlier and, kind of open my mind to getting even more equipment sooner. If you invest in yourself, that's the one way you're going to succeed. And then 3, I think this is the biggest part of our success and growth, is really finding a good team to surround yourself in. I really think I have the best team in dentistry, from when you first call to when you walk in the door to hygienist to, by the time I come in, the patient pretty much knows what they need. They're feeling good. I don't have to sell treatment or anything. Like we go over stuff and they feel confident and they trust me to move forward. And that's all because of my team. You think about we have probably 30-ish employees. And right now we have 3 dentists. Like their patient interaction with the team is way more than a dentist. Say it's 10% of the time they're talking with me. It's right. The team that builds that aspect, with the patient and with each other. So definitely find yourself a great team. Probably have to overpay a couple people, but it's so worth it.
I think that's a great point about the confidence and never regretting any risks that you took, only regretting that you didn't take bigger risks or do things sooner. I feel that 100%. I've never regretted hiring that next hygienist. I've never regretted, buying that next dental chair or starting that next practice. The only regrets I've ever had is that I waited too long to do some of these things. So I think that just goes to show, guys, like, have an abundance mindset. You've got to have confidence in yourself. You've got to invest in yourself. You've got to be willing to take some risks. I mean, you don't get to a practice like Fran's by playing it safe. You've got to go out there a little bit. You've got to, push that comfort zone, like we said, both clinically and from a business standpoint. You've got to invest in marketing. You've got to have a little bit of patience with marketing, but you've got to invest. And I'm sure, Fran, as you're getting ready to, do this massive expansion here, not only do you have to hire all these additional people, but you've probably got to change your marketing strategy once again. And you're probably going to have to ramp up marketing again, because while you're busting at the seams at 8 ops, you're not going to be busting at the seams at 16, and you probably don't want to take 10 years to get there. So I don't know if that's something that you've thought about. I'm sure it's something you've been talking with, Matt and his team about. But that's something that, I constantly go through in the startup processes. Even out the gate, we're investing $10,000 to $15,000 a month in marketing because we want to get patients going right away. We want to, get our goal is, we want to hit 100K in production within the first 2 to 3 months. That's always the goal. And in order to do that, you've got to spend money to make money. But then even as the practice grows, we add that next hygienist, we add a second associate doc, whatever it is, you've got to then increase marketing budgets again. And so it's nothing is set in stone. You've got to have a finger on the pulse, and you've got to constantly make adjustments based on the needs of your practice. So
absolutely. And actually I called Luke, who works with Matt. And I said, about a month ago, I said, you gotta stop the marketing. You gotta slow down. You guys are doing too good of a job. We don't have the seats. We don't have the chairs right now. Let's cut it in half for now, and then once we get those chairs, we'll double it. But they were almost doing too good of a job. So you redeemed yourself, Matt.
One thing I want to say to both of you guys is, Frank said something earlier that, like, you got lucky with a really good team. Okay, and I see this from a high level because I have so many practice owners every day. And your good team for another doc could be a horrible team, or it could be a mediocre team, right? So part of what both you guys do, and most of my successful docs, is they're good enough leaders at getting the best out of everybody. So I had, we bought a practice earlier this year, and I had my doc down visiting Dr. Vallo, and my doc goes, how does Vallo hire such good team members? And I go to my doc and his assistant that was working with him. I go, I think you're asking the wrong question. He's like, I was like, how is Vallo such an awesome leader that he gets the most out of the team members? I don't think either one of you were lucky. Doc didn't get lucky with 7 practices worth of awesome team members. You didn't get lucky with really 3 practices worth of awesome team members. You guys both are amazing leaders that get the most out of people.
Yeah, thank you. We try. I feel like the leadership, from the start is really important. Now we have this culture where, like, you fit in or you don't. We'll have a couple of people we try to hire so that we don't have to fire, and we try to hire people that stay forever. But sometimes we pick the wrong person, and they kind of just wean themselves out. They don't fit into the culture. The culture is created, and it's made it a lot easier recently, to add that, which is pretty cool.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up now, Fran. Thank you for coming on so much. Hey guys, we don't do this. We don't get paid. There's no sponsors. There's no money that comes in for this. Me and Andrew record, once a month, whole days worth of recordings, and we do it for the pureness of there being good guidance out there in the marketplace. Please click like, subscribe, and leave a review and share. Fran, what things do you want to leave off with before we hang up?
Yeah, anybody out there that thinking about starting up their own practice, if you have confidence, write it down. You can do it, and I guess best of luck.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us. Have a great day.